Hey guys, welcome back to another class preview in the Legion Alpha. We're going to be going over Feral Druid today and kind of seeing kind of all the new forms. Well, um, basically the overall spec of the Feral Druid does seem quite awesome now that they do have new new cat forms. Not all of them have been released yet. I believe there's one more that still are coming out, one more section that's going to be pretty cool for all of the specs. Give us a little bit more um, variety for us druid people. I do enjoy playing my druid, but watching the same cat form all day, every day is kind of a little mundane, but I'm very glad that we changed it, and I do love all of the new forms. But we're going to be going over the class and kind of seeing how it plays now in Legion comparatively to Warlords of Draenor. Um, but first off, we're going to kind of go through the spellbook and just see the same old spells and kind of see what has changed. Let's get right into it. First of all, we do have bear form. Shapeshift into a bear form, increasing armor by 200%, stamina by 30%, granting protection from polymorph effects, and increased threat generation. Not much new here. Still have most of the same kind of abilities, but those also get kind of delve into some talents, which we'll be going over a little bit later. Now we do have Berserk as our main type of cooldown, DPS cooldown. It does have a 3-minute cooldown. Does reduce all the cat form abilities by 50% and increase your maximum energy by 50 for 15 seconds. Now let's see, is a pretty nice cooldown. Does give you a lot more energy to spend and basically reduces all the cooldown, the energy cost of all of your abilities, which is really nice. I do think this is a pretty good addition to the Berserk than when it was in Warlords, uh, because I believe it was just reducing the cost of all cat form abilities by 50%. But next off, we do have cat form. Shapeshift into a cat form, increasing your movement speed by 30%, granting protection from polymorph effects, and reducing falling damage. The act of shapeshifting frees you from movement impairing effects, which is always nice. Nothing new there. I don't know why all of those things are popping up on the screen. Still a few different bugs in the Legion Alpha, but next off we do have Dash. Basic speed increase. It hasn't changed much at all. There's a 3-minute cooldown. Does increase your movement speed by 70% while in cat form for 15 seconds. Dreamwalk, that's just the portal to the class hall. Tangling Roots, roots targeted in place for 30 seconds. Damage may cancel this effect. Kind of nice that Druids have that little extra CC. We do have Ferocious Bite as our main combo point spender. We're still running off the 5 combo point system with 100 energy, depending on our talents and also our cooldowns. But it is a finishing move that causes damage per combo point and consumes up to 25 additional energy and to increase damage up to 100%. So when used on targets below 25% life, Ferocious Bite will also refresh the duration of your rip on your target. Now this is pretty nice, especially on the lower burn phases. You don't want to be applying a freshly new bleed onto a target that's going to be dying here shortly. So I do like the fact that it does refresh our main kind of a bleed on the target. It does do additional damage if you have more energy up. Say it already costs 25 energy. It can cost up to 50 energy and do double the damage. That's always a added bonus. So if you do even the 5 combo points with 21,000 damage, it would automatically do 42,000 damage with 50 energy, which is pretty nice. Kind of gives you a little options so when you want to press it. Frenzied Regeneration we do have in bear form. Heals you for 40% of all damage taken in the last 5 seconds over 6 seconds with a minimum of 5 of your max life. Now that's kind of ties in with one of our talents, but we'll kind of go over a little bit later. Growl, bear form taunt. Healing Touch just heals a friendly target for 25,000. It's a 2.4 second cast. Iron Fur, that's a part of a talent. We'll go over later. Now main, this hasn't changed much at all, but it is on a 10-second cooldown with a 1 to 5 combo point cast. It does cost 35 energy. It was a finishing move that causes physical damage and stuns the target. Damage during the duration is increased per combo point. Now it does pretty low damage, but it also stuns the target, which is mostly used for so each point does add an additional second to it, up to 5 seconds, which is kind of nice. Gives you a little extra stun. Mango is a bear form ability, does generate 6 rage, does 8,000 physical damage, and deals 20% additional damage to bleeding targets. Mighty Bash is a talent we'll go over later. Now Moonfire is somewhat a talent as well. It is now useful in bear form, some to be added onto that, but it can be used in cat form, but we'll go over that a little later. We do have Prowl, basically activates cat form, places you into stealth until cancelled. It is a 10-second cooldown, just kind of nice little stealth. It does modify your abilities a little bit, but they'll be kind of changed around when we go over the abilities themselves. Now Rake is a 35 energy cast. Rakes a target for 3,000 bleed damage and an additional 16,000 bleed damage over 10 seconds. Reduces the target movement speed by 50% for 12 seconds. Always nice. While stealth, Rake will also stun the target for 4 seconds and deal 100% increased damage. Now, since our mastery does work off of bleeds, this is always a very nice opener, just so we get that additional bleed on the target. Excuse me. Now, we do have Rebirth. Just like it used to be, it is a 10-minute cooldown. Returns spirit to the body, restoring a dead target back to life with 60% health and 20% mana, castable while in combat. Now this is also an instant cast, so that's kind of changed a little bit. It used to kind of have to make you get out of cat form, basically almost stop your rotation. This does absolutely none of that anymore. It just wastes a global cooldown, which is quite nice. So when you're trading the boss, you don't have to entirely worry about it messing up your rotation. We do have Remove Corruption. It's a 4,000 mana cost with an 8-second cooldown. It's an instant cast that nullifies corrupting effects on the friendly target, removing all curse and poison effects. Kind of nice to help out some of your healers sometimes. We do have Revive, normal res. Now Rip is primarily our most our biggest damage income. It does do the most damage over time, and since cat forms do kind of work off of their bleeding damage, it does matter about keeping this on your target at all times. Finishing move that does cause bleed damage over 16 seconds. damage increased per combo point. Obviously, you can use this up to a max of 5 combo points. With 5 combo points doing 42,000 damage. The damage is, I think, around accurate. We'll kind of have to see at max level, see if it scales that well. Plus, it'll also scale with your mastery itself, so it does depend on your stat priority. Now, Shred is our main ability. It does cost 40 energy. It shreds the target for 27,000 physical damage, deals 20% increased damage against bleeding targets, which we should always have a bleed up on our target. While stealth, Shred does 20% increased damage, and has double the chance to critically strike. Now this is a nice little damage bonus. I'd still open up with Rake a little bit more, since it does have a stun and also works off our mastery with that extra bleed damage. And it does award 1 combo point each time you do use it. So crits do kind of help out, but we'll go over that a little bit later. Skull Bash as an instant cast is basically our interrupt. It's a 15-second cooldown. You charge and bash the target's skull, interrupting spell casting and preventing any spell in that school to be cast for 4 seconds. Now this is a very nice ability just because it's an extra charge. There are talents to give us a charge, but this one comes baseline with everything. It's not the longest charge, but say you're a little bit away from the target and you still need to interrupt it, you cast it, you go zooming towards the target and get the interrupt. Now, Stampeding Roar is our kind of a party slash raid cooldown that does increase our movement speed. It does have a 2-minute cooldown, but lets loose a wild roar, increasing movement speed of all friendly players within 10 yards for 60% for 8 seconds. Quite nice talent. Now that some of the other classes are starting to get some of these, you don't need a Druid in the raid, but it's always nice to have one because they look badass now. Survival Instincts is our main defensive cooldown. It's an instant cast with a 2-minute recharge. Reduces all damage you take by 50% for 6 seconds, and you do have 2 charges on it. Now, this is a little bit different than most other specs defensive cooldowns. Since you do have 2 charges, it does have a lower recharge time than most other classes defensive cooldown, and does reduce by quite a bit. So this is actually pretty powerful in high burst intensity moments. Now we do have Swipe. It does cost 45 energy. You swipe nearby enemies, inflicting 10,000 physical damage, deals 20% increased damage against bleeding targets, and awards 1 combo point. Now this is pretty nice. There are some talents to adjust it, but we'll go over that a little bit later. Basically, your main spender for your AoE abilities. Now we do have Thrash. Costs 50 energy. Strikes all nearby enemies, dealing 3,000 bleed damage, and an additional 11,000 bleed damage over 10 seconds. Now, obviously, you'd like to hit Thrash than hit Swipe, since Swipe does 20% more damage against bleeding targets. No surprise there. It does kind of all work off for your mastery, give you a little extra bonus on your bleeding damage. Tiger's Fury is an instant cast with a 30-second cooldown. Instantly restores 60 energy, and also increases the physical damage of all your attacks by 15% of their full duration. Lasts 8 seconds. Now this is a nice little cooldown. does mostly help you get back that energy cost, but also gives you a nice little bonus to your damage. Does help out quite a bit. It does seem a little energy starved as a feral druid, even comparatively to a rogue, but it does. You definitely need something like this in the rotation just to make sure that you're able to do like burst damage and get your bleeds up on a target pretty quick. Next, we do have travel form. Nothing's really changed there. Shapeshift into travel form appropriate to your current location, increasing movement speed on land, in water, or in air, granting protection from polymorph effects. The act of shapeshifting frees you from any movement impairing effects. Like always, charges to the town, we'll review later. Now onto our passives. We have Feline Swiftness is our first passive. Just baseline, increase your movement speed by 15%. Now this does stack with cat form, so you do have a baseline of 45% movement speed, which is pretty sweet. At least it should. But it still increases the movement speed outside of cat form, so you still have a 15% movement speed overall, which is kind of nice. I don't see why you wouldn't be in cat form. Now onto the next passive, we have Infected Wounds. Rake causes the infected wound in the target, reducing the target's movement speed by 50% for 12 seconds. Nice little slow. You don't really have to worry about casting any abilities to slow down your target. Gives you a nice little passive, especially in PvP. Now onto our mastery is Razor's Claws. It does increase our damage done by our cat form bleeds by 26%, based on your mastery, of course. Nice little boost there. I used to be a lot higher, but they kind of scaled it down and scaled up just the regular damage of the bleeds. This is quite nice since most of our stuff works off of bleeds, and even our main generator abilities do benefit from our attacks bleeding as well. Now we do have Omen of Clarity. Your auto attacks have a chance to reduce the energy cost of your next cat form ability by 100%. Now this is very nice since it is worked off an energy point system, and most of our energy costs are pretty high, such as 40 energy for Shred and 35 for Rake, which is going to be most of our spenders. But it does help out to get those extra costs. Plus, we do have Thrash and Swiper pretty high there for AoE, so definitely helps out in AoE situations just a touch more. Next we have Predatory Swiftness. Your finishing moves has a 20% chance per combo point to make your next healing touch, Tangling Roots, a Rebirth, instant cast, free, and in castable in all forms. Now this also just stacks up to 100% if you use it with all your combo points. So it is nice to have a free healing touch on yourself, or maybe a root to kind of give you some more CC capabilities in your cat form. Next we have Primal Fury. When you critically strike with an attack that generates a combo point, you gain an additional combo point. Now this is very nice since it's going to work off. You're going to be putting points in Mastery and into Critical Strike, since crit does work so much better on reducing your energy cost. Since you need 5 combo points, you can Shred for 40 energy and get 2 combo points if it crits. Plus it does extra damage. It's always nice, but does reduce a lot on our energy cost. Therefore, we can spam more abilities. It does kind of synergize pretty hard, and kind of makes it pretty difficult not to even build crit. But damage over time cannot trigger this effect, so you can crit off of the initial rake and get additional combo points, but you cannot crit on the tick or the blade itself and gain a point off of that. Last but not least, we have Thick Hide, which is kind of a talent. We'll kind of go over that in just a minute. Now we're moving on to the talents. Now our first 15 tier, we have Predator. It's a passive. The cooldown of Tiger's Fury resets when the target dies with one of our bleeds active. This is very nice on high changing fights. Does give us a lot more energy to work with Tiger's Fury. If we have a bunch of ads coming out, we can obviously keep some bleeds on them pretty easily, and it just constantly gets reset. So I can see that being very useful in AoE fights. Now Blood Scent. This is another passive. Your melee abilities in cat form have a 10% increased critical strike chance on your target with a bleed effect. Now, is it just me, or does this seem a little overpowered? You basically get 10% more crit all the time, because you should always have a bleed on target. It's a very nice passive, and it synergizes very well with getting more combo points and spending less energy. But yeah, it's a pretty dull talent, but it's a pretty awesome one at that. Last but not least in this tier, we do have Lunar Inspiration as another passive. Moonfire is now usable in cat form. It does generate one combo point and deals damage based on your attack power instead of your intel, like it should be used. But it does cost 30 energy. Now this is another dot that you can keep up. I'm not sure if the actual it actually counts with as a bleed. I don't see a huge increase over with mastery, since it is arcane damage. So I do not believe it works with our mastery. Who knows, they might change that a little bit later, but it does kind of give you one extra combo point, and kind of a cool Moonfire in cat form. Next we have Renewal. Instantly heals you for 30% of your maximum health, usable in all shapeshift forms with a 2-minute cooldown. Now that's a nice little heal, kind of helps out. I mean, Druids already have quite a bit of heals. After every finisher move they can do, they can cast Healing Touch, but gives you a little bit extra healing, especially in high damage rate fights, or even if you're being bursted on in PvP. So kind of nice. Next one, we do have Displacer Beast. Teleports you up to 20 yards forward, activating cat form, and increasing your movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. It is on a 30-second cooldown, but this is just basically a blink. It does increase your movement speed afterwards, which is quite nice, but it does kind of have a little bit longer cooldown than most other escapes. Last off, we do have Wild Charge. It is at 8 through 25 yard range with a 15-second cooldown. Now this is different depending on your shapeshift form. Now when we're in non-shapeshift form, you can use this to fly to an ally's position. When we're in bear form, we use it to charge an enemy and immobilizing them for 4 seconds. When we're in cat form, we can leap behind an enemy, dazing them for 3 seconds. This does not break stealth, by the way. In travel form, we use this to leap forward 20 yards. Now in aquatic form, it does increase our swim speed by 150% for 5 seconds. Quite nice. I do like using this, especially just kind of get around a lot faster, especially if you need to switch targets. Now on to the affinities. We do have Balance Affinity. It does increase the range of all of your abilities, includes all of your melee abilities as well, by 5 yards. Not the best for Feral, but it is kind of useful in sometimes. But you also learn Moonkin form with Star Surge, Lunar Strike, Solar Wrath, and Sunfire. Kind of gives you the ability to be a Boomkin, but as Feral, it does not make much sense to do that. We'd basically be using it for the passive of the 5-yard range. Next one, we do have Guardian Affinity. The passive for this one, we do reduce all damage taken by 10%. Now this is a pretty amazing passive because you just get a 10% reduction. And plus you can always use your bear as another cooldown and actually use some of the abilities in there, such as Mangle. Basically does some damage. Now Iron Fur is kind of our cooldown in bear form, which increases our armor by 100% for 6 seconds. Multiple uses of this ability may overlap. Won't be worrying about this too much. Maybe if we really needed it to, just in case our tank died and we had to tank for the last 20% of the boss, but it might be useful then. Plus Frenzy Regeneration, which we kind of went over, does give you a nice heal based on the damage that is dealt to you in the past 5 seconds. Now we do have Restoration Affinity. The passive on this heals you for 3% of your maximum life every 5 seconds. If you are at full life, a random nearby injured ally will be healed instead. Nice little heal. You don't really have to worry about it. But as Ferals, we already have a bunch of heals going on as is with our Healing Touch. And even if we went for Renewal, we would have that as well. Now we do have new abilities that we do learn with this. We do get Rejuvenation, Regrowth, and Swift Mend, which is very nice abilities. They do give you quite a bit of life back. I mean, Swift Mend has kind of changed now. It is just a 30-second cooldown. Instantly heals you for quite a bit of health, 49,000. Regrowth, it does have a nice critical strike chance of 60%. And Rejuvenation does its own thing of having that heal over time for 25,000 for 15 seconds. Now moving on to 60 talents, we do have Mighty Bash. And it's an instant cast that has a 50-second cooldown. Invokes the spirit of Ursak to stun the target for 5 seconds. And it is usable in all shapeshift forms. Now this is kind of nice to give you an extra little stun. But as Ferals, we do have Maim. So we already have a stun in place that does share the same diminishing returns as Mighty Bash, but so just kind of watch out for that. So I wouldn't say it's the best, but it is sometimes nice just not to use your combo points for a stun. Next we do have Mass Entanglement. Instant cast, 30-second cooldown. Roots the target in place for 20 seconds and spreads to additional nearby enemies. Damage may interrupt this effect. It is usable in all shapeshift forms. Now this is a nice little CC ability doesn't last as long as regular entangling roots, but it does spread to additional targets. It's a very nice CC in raids. I could see this being very useful in PvP as well, just in case we're going against a DK, and since DKs don't have that much root or immobilizing control to get back to their target. Next off, we do have Typhoon. It's an instant cast with a 30-second cooldown. Strikes the targets within 15 yards in front of you with a violent typhoon, knocking them back and dazing them for 6 seconds. This is useful in all shift forms. Very nice ability, especially for knocking people off the edges. Pretty low cooldown, gives you a little daze as well. So it can be very useful in the right places. Now onto the 75 talents. We do have Soul of the Forest as our passive. Your finishing moves grant you 6 energy per combo point, so up to a maximum of 30 energy. So this is a nice little passive that if we're feeling a little energy starved, or if we need more energy to use, I would definitely recommend going with this. It does give you a nice little bonus, since most of our finishers do cost, since our rip does cost 30 energy, you don't lose any energy for casting this. Then when our ferocious bite, we don't lose it, we actually gain 5 energy for casting this with that talent. Next off, we have Incarnation, King of the Jungle. Now to note, this does replace Berserk. It used to be a talent as well, but it didn't used to replace our main cooldown. It's an instant cast with a 3-minute cooldown, and an improved cat form that allows you the use of Prowl while in combat. Causes Shred and Rake to deal damage as if they were as if stealth was active. So you get a lot more damage, a lot more combo points, because you get a lot more crit. Reduces the cost of all cat form abilities by 50%, and increases your maximum energy by 50. Now this is practically the same thing, but you do get that added bonus of being stealth during this cast time. It does last for 30 seconds, which is pretty long. You can shapeshift in and out of this for the full duration of it. So there's always a ticking timer on the 30 seconds, so once you use it, you switch into another form, it doesn't stop the timer. So it's still counting down, so you might as well make the most of it and stay in the cat form. Next we do have Savage Roar. Now this used to be just a main ability. They did switch it onto a talent. It does cost 25 energy. This is a combo point finisher that grants 30% increased damage to your cat form attacks for their full duration. They'll last longer per combo point spend, so up to 24 seconds. Now in Warlords, this was was a lot longer. You didn't really have to worry that much about keeping this up because it was almost up for a minute at a time. They did reduce the seconds that it is up quite a bit, but it still does do 30% increased damage, which is amazing. Next we do have Sabertooth. It's a passive. Your Ferocious Bite extends the duration of your rip by 2 seconds per combo point spent, so up to a maximum of 10. Now this kind of counteracts the your passive at targets below 25%. Since it automatically refreshes your rip on targets that are below 25%, this kind of is not that good after the 25% health bar. For the first 75% of the boss, this is a pretty good a passive. Does help you maintain your rip up and gives you a little bit more energy to play with. Not a lot, but also kind of helps out. Next, we do have Jagged Wounds as another passive. Your Rip, Rake, and Thrash abilities deal the same amount of damage as normal, but in 33% less time. Now, since our whole thing does kind of work off of bleeds, this is a very good talent. It does kind of starve you a little bit more for energy, since you do have to kind of apply your bleeds a lot more often. But you also benefit from a lot more damage from your mastery ability. Now, last in this tier tree, we do have a Loon's Grace, or Guidance. It's a 30-yard range, instant cast with a 45-second cooldown. Immediately gain 5 combo points, and an additional 1 combo point every 1 second for 5 seconds. So you get a total of 10 combo points. Nice little combo point finisher there. Plus, does help you get back up to 5 combo points pretty quickly as well. Nice little cooldown. I like that it's on a 45-second cooldown. Does kind of make this somewhat viable. I think this would be very good for maybe lower number of targets in cleave. So maybe about 3 targets, making sure you have bleeds up on all of them. It could be very useful in that situation, or maybe even bursting when ads come out that you gotta get down and get a rip on, and then kind of applying your other dots. So this could be very useful. I still think Jagged Wounds wins out a little bit more, but we'll kind of see. Now in the level 100 talents, we do have Brutal Slash. This does replace Swipe. It costs the same amount of energy, 45. It's an instant cast with a 17-second recharge. Now this does still strike all enemies around you, inflicting 39,000 physical damage, which is a lot more than our normal Swipe, which does 10,000. But it awards 1 combo point. It does work off of crits, but it does have 3 charges. So since this is kind of a different ability, since this says it is not affected by bleeds. So overall, I don't think this talent is going to be that good. If it did get the 20% extra additional damage against bleeding targets, I would find this pretty amazing. It would do a lot of damage. It is just kind of for mostly those moments where you have a bunch of small ads coming out and you need to get them down as fast as you can. Kind of reduces the energy cost on doing the max amount of damage to multiple targets. Next off, we still have Blood Talents as one of our passive abilities. Casting Healing Touch causes your next 2 melee abilities to deal 30% increased damage for their full duration. Now this basically means you do get a free Healing Touch at a 5 combo point spender. Now you can save this up for another finisher, such as your Rip, which will do most of your damage. Then also add a Rake in there to also help out your bleeding, which kind of affects your mastery, which I would kind of recommend using. But you could also just use it right away and get that extra damage from Shred, which does not help you in the long run. So you kind of have to time this out. does kind of add a cool effect in how you have to play your Druid. Gives you a little bit different choices. But we do have Moment of Clarity as our last talent. It is a passive. Omen of Clarity now affects your next 3 cat form abilities, and your maximum energy is increased by 30. Now, if we remember Omen of Clarity, it basically gives us, off our auto attacks, a chance to reduce the energy cost of your next cat form ability by 100%. Now, Moment of Clarity changes that to the next 3 abilities, so you can have a lot more energy to play with and kind of have a lot more shreds, a lot more rips, a lot more everything. It does increase our maximum energy by 30, so of a total of 130. This is very nice, kind of helps out, especially when you're popping Tiger's Fury and you're at, say, above 40 energy. You should be good on still casting it, and without going over the energy without it building. So I do like this talent. It is kind of a bland talent, but also kind of helps out your energy usage. So it kind of gives you another way to play. Now moving on to our artifact weapon, the Fangs of Ashamain. Our main ability for this is going to be Ashamain's Frenzy. It is an instant cast with a 1.25 minute cooldown. It does require a cat form, so it does unleash Ashamain's Frenzy, clawing your target 15 times over 3 seconds for 16,000 physical damage and an additional 48,000 bleed damage over 6 seconds. Now this is a pretty nice thing, since it does award 3 combo points and does trigger your mastery. It does work off of bleed damage, so it does kind of help out energy, help out your mastery, and also kind of gives you quite a bit of extra damage just for no cost. Since there is no energy cost on it, it is a little bit longer cooldown than most other specs that do have like 45-second cooldowns on theirs, but this is a still good ability that you get to use, and it kind of helps out the energy starve. Now most of these others are just passives that kind of help out your damage. It does increase damage of Rip, does increase damage of Berserk, and stuff like that. There are some different abilities that do apply, like Open Wounds, the Fangs of Ashamain, tear deep into your target, causing your target to ignore 15% of their armor while Rip is active. Now this is pretty nice, gives you even more damage and stuff like that. Like we also do have Ashamain's Bite. Ferocious Bite has a chance to awaken the spirit of Ashamain, which inflicts shadow duplicate of your Rip on your target. Gives you extra Rip, and since that is still working off of bleed damage, it does affect your passive of your mastery. We also do have Shadow Thrash. It basically helps your AoE capability. Thrash has a chance to release a part of Ashamain's soul, causing all nearby enemies to take 32,000 shadow damage over 3 seconds. Now I do not believe this works with our mastery, since it is shadow damage, but it is still additional 32,000 damage at level 100, which is quite nice and good just for another passive. But that's about it for cat form and Feral Druid. But I do really enjoy this spec overall. I think it's going to be more viable. It didn't used to be that viable in Warlords because Boomkins were kind of overpowered. But I do think they're making some nice changes to it. Kind of gives you your own way to play. You kind of change up your spec however you like to play. Such as Jagged Wounds, I like to be applying more bleeds. Gives me more work with my mastery, and just kind of like moments of clarity. I also do Blood Talents, switch it up quite a bit, and kind of choose which abilities are going to be more powerful in your rotation. But overall, a very cool new spec. It does have some awesome new animations. As you can see right here, they're really cool. They actually add the actual swipe itself instead of just a normal whatever. But a very fun spec overall. And it is still Legion Alpha, so some of the damage numbers may change. I do think Rake is kind of where it's supposed to be, but Rip is a little bit off. I'm not sure if they want those to be closer together numbers or distance, but I do think the numbers are going to change no matter what, especially during endgame. Should be a nice little change, but since it is Legion Alpha, it's always constantly changing. So anyways, thanks for watching. If we do like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If we have any questions, please just leave them in the comment box below. And thank you once again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.